Hey there folks, welcome to another episode of Marvelous Anime. Today we are getting into the rise and fall of Pacific Rim, which is a franchise that started with a bang with massive robots, monstrous kaiju, and of course the trademark flair of Guillermo del Toro. But despite a passionate fanbase and a world full of potential, things didn't go as planned. From a lackluster sequel to shifting formats like animation, comics, and streaming, the franchise took some unexpected turns. So get ready, because we're unpacking what really happened to Pacific Rim. Let's get into it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The birth of a kaiju franchise. Pacific Rim's origins and vision. In 2013, Pacific Rim premiered as an original sci-fi blockbuster in a summer full of sequels. Director Guillermo del Toro and screenwriter Travis Beacham built a world overrun by monsters, saved by machines, driven by people. The story opens in the near future. Giant creatures known as Kaiju emerge from an interdimensional rift, the Breach, at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Cities fall, millions die. World governments unite to create the Jaeger program, which are towering mechs piloted by two people whose minds must sync in the drift, a shared neural link. The early days of the Kaiju War are shown in montage, humanity's fear and its response, the formation of the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. Over time, Jaegers start to win. The public celebrates the pilots like heroes, but the Kaiju keep evolving into something bigger, faster, and deadlier. Jaegers begin to fall. The world loses faith. We see Rayleigh Beckett, a former pilot who lost his brother in combat. He's pulled out of retirement by Marshal Stacker Pentecost for a final mission. The Jaeger program is being shut down. One last attempt will be made to destroy the breach using the remaining machines. Rayleigh is paired with Mako Mori, a trainee with a personal score to settle. Together, they pilot Gypsy Danger. Their bond is central to the film. Neither of them is fully ready. One is haunted and the other is untested, but they're all that's left. As the kaiju attacks escalate, the team races to launch a final strike to get a Jaeger into the breach and detonate a nuclear payload inside. The plan works, but two Jaegers are lost. One pilot dies, the other barely escapes. The breach is closed, the war ends. But the film's staying power came from everything around it. Pacific Rim was a tribute to the kaiju films of Japan and the mecha anime of the director's childhood. But instead of nostalgia, he built something new. The world looked real. Rusted metal, stained jumpsuits, giant machines built for war. He gave the pilots depth. They were scared, scarred, and flawed. The drift was not merely a sci-fi concept. Two people had to relive each other's worst memories in order to function. That made every punch matter more. Del Toro also kept the tone earnest. The world was absurd. Critics praised the visual design, the pacing, and the sincerity. Different nations, different backgrounds, one cause. And while the film didn't blow up domestically, global audiences embraced it, especially in Asia, where kaiju and mecha have long been a part of pop culture. Pacific Rim proved that original ideas, when built with care and vision, could still stand tall in a sea of sequels. Pacific Rim 2013, cult classic and box office discrepancies. The story of Pacific Rim was contained. The characters had arcs, and the world was fully developed. Critics noticed. Reviews praised the world building, the energy in the fights, and the sincerity in tone. Guillermo del Toro's direction was bold and precise. Despite these strong reviews, the film didn't lead the box office in its opening weekends in the US. It finished behind other summer titles and earned around $101 million domestically by the end of its run. Global numbers told a different story. Pacific Rim made over $300 million outside the US, including $112 million in China. It performed well in markets where anime, kaiju films, and mech-based storytelling already had strong followings. The Chinese Jaeger, Crimson Typhoon, and the extended fight scenes set in Hong Kong boosted its appeal there. The total box office reached $411 million, which made it Guillermo del Toro's biggest financial success. It also became the most profitable installment in the franchise, leading to the approval of a sequel. But financials weren't the only thing keeping Pacific Rim alive. Over the years, it gained a loyal fanbase. Viewers dug into the Jaeger blueprints, the hierarchy of Kaiju, the rules of the drift, and the geopolitical structure of the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. The film's visuals were praised, although the focus remained on how human connections fueled the war effort. It introduced emotional risks inside huge metal machines, where each battle forced pilots to relive their trauma, sync memories, and trust someone else completely. Mako Mori stood out to everyone particularly. Her narrative was built on loss and courage, which was identified as a powerful demonstration of character agency. Fans even coined the Mako Mori test as a response to limited female representation in genre films. The film's reputation grew steadily. People returned to it because it felt designed with purpose. The Jaegers were built like machines. The characters felt ordinary but determined. It didn't rely on nostalgia or brands. The story stood on its own. Even though the domestic box office didn't explode, international performance and growing fan support gave the film legs. And for a film with no superheroes, no prequel, and no built-in franchise, that made Pacific Rim a rare case where a fully original idea found a global audience and left a mark that still holds up. Sequel trouble. Pacific Rim Uprising's mixed impact. After the surprise global success of Pacific Rim in 2013, a sequel was set to release, but the franchise had already started to drift off course by the time Pacific Rim Uprising hit theaters in 2018. Guillermo del Toro, who directed the original and helped shape its world, stepped away from directing the sequel due to scheduling conflicts. Stephen S. DeKnight, who is known for his work on Daredevil, took over the directing role, and his vision pushed the series in a new direction, which had faster pacing, more action, and a younger cast. The story picks up 10 years after the breach is sealed. Jake Pentecost, son of war hero Stacker Pentecost, now lives outside the system, is arrested after stealing Jaeger parts, and is given a choice of prison or return to the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps as an instructor. Mako Mori, who is now a high-ranking officer, brings him back into the fold. She introduces him to a new generation of cadets, including Amara Namani, a teenage genius who built her own tiny Jaeger, Scrapper, from salvaged parts. When a rogue Jaeger attacks during a public demonstration, the PPDC realizes the Kaiju threat may not be over. Mako is soon killed in a suspicious crash. The investigation leads to a discovery that Kaiju DNA is being fused with Jaeger tech, and the breach might reopen. Jake and his co-pilot, Nate Lambert, train the cadets while preparing for another potential invasion. The film builds to a final showdown in Tokyo, where Kaiju hybrids are unleashed. Amara joins the mission, and together, they stop the creatures before they reach Mount Fuji, which is a key location that would have triggered another breach. While the plot moves quickly, it leaves much of the emotional weight behind. The drift concept, which was central to the first film's drama, is barely explored. Mako's character, who had depth and importance, is written out early. The personal stakes that anchored Pacific Rim are replaced by big set pieces and fast edits. Critically, the response was mild. Some praised the upgraded Jaeger designs and lighter tone, but many noticed the film lacked the style and sincerity that made the original stand out. The deeper world building was gone. Characters felt underdeveloped. Dialogue leaned generic. Fans also had mixed reactions. Longtime supporters of the original didn't connect with the sequel's approach. The emotional threads were thin, and the loss of key characters both on-screen and behind the scenes was felt. At the box office, Uprising earned around $290 million worldwide, with about $99 million from China alone. That was lower than the original budget's global total. Its domestic numbers were especially soft, pulling in only $59 million in the US. The film had a bigger budget than the first, which made the returns way underwhelming than expected. Plans for a third film were teased in the final scene, where Jake vows to take the fight to the precursors, but nothing moves forward. The franchise's momentum stalled. Instead, the series shifted to animation with Pacific Rim: The Black on Netflix. In the end, Uprising couldn't build on what Pacific Rim started.
We keep going!
Spin-offs and animation: The Black and franchise expansion. In 2021, Netflix released Pacific Rim: The Black, an animated spin-off set years after the original films. Developed by Polygon Pictures and Legendary Television, it brought the franchise into a darker post-apocalyptic phase. The story follows teenage siblings Taylor and Haley Travis. Their parents were Jaeger pilots who left them behind to search for help after Australia fell to the Kaiju. Years later, Taylor and Haley discover an abandoned training Jaeger named Atlas Destroyer. Lacking full weapon systems, the Jaeger is still functional, which becomes their only way to survive the kaiju-infested wasteland. The timeline places The Black well after both films. The breach has been closed, but the world is far from stable. Australia has been overrun and cut off. The Pan-Pacific Defense Corps is no longer operating in the region, leaving survivors to fend for themselves. While searching for their parents, Taylor and Haley encounter escalating dangers: kaiju with unpredictable behaviors, rogue humans with their own agendas, and a mysterious hybrid boy they name Boy, who appears to have kaiju DNA, but is capable of shifting into human form. Over 2 seasons, the siblings grow into capable pilots, facing loss and discovering secrets about what's left of the world beyond Australia. The Jaeger, Atlas Destroyer, becomes a shared space where the siblings reconnect and confront their past. The Black separated itself with its tone and setting. It's darker, more character-focused, and leans into long-form storytelling. While the films lean towards spectacle, the series blends tension through atmosphere and survival. The kaiju here are a part of an ecosystem that's reshaping society. The Black received solid critical reviews. Fans and franchise followers appreciated the extended universe and the shift in tone. Some viewers took issue with the pacing, but the character development and exploration of neglected aspects of the Pacific Rim universe were well received. It also introduced new questions about the precursors and their impact, setting the stage for other possible future narratives. Beyond the anime, the franchise had also been extended through comic books. Titles like Pacific Rim: Tales from Year Zero and Pacific Rim: Aftermath helped bridge the gaps between films, offering deeper context on the Kaiju War, the rise of the Jaeger program, and what happened in the years between the breach's closure and its later reemergence. Together, these expansions added depth to the mythology. While the live-action films struggled to maintain momentum after the first entry, The Black and the comics kept the universe alive. Stalled movies, shifting strategies. What killed Pacific Rim 3? At the time when Pacific Rim Uprising was released in theaters in 2018, it was supposed to bring the franchise to another stage. The sequel failed to outperform the original as it was supposed to. The critical reviews were mixed to best at worst, with numerous longtime fans complaining that the film lacked the directorial touch of Guillermo del Toro and has become more of a younger, action-oriented film rather than staying true to its older and more initial roots. The fallout from Uprising stalled the once ambitious plans for Pacific Rim 3. Despite the uncertainty, Uprising director Stephen S. DeKnight had already begun to sketch out what a third movie might look like. In interviews, DeKnight revealed that his concept for Pacific Rim 3 would have taken the story in a bold new direction, expanding the universe into a full-blown multiverse. The early script hinted at a crossover with Legendary's Monsterverse, potentially linking Pacific Rim to kaiju icons like Godzilla and Kong. The finale of Uprising, which ends with humanity preparing to take the fight to the Precursor's world, laid the groundwork for this shift, suggesting a far more interdimensional high-concept narrative. But that pitch never got off the ground. One reason was simple economics. The sequel's box office, while not a disaster, didn't justify the huge investment required for another effects-heavy blockbuster. Legendary Pictures, navigating its slate of projects and responding to shifting market trends, pulled back on theatrical expansion. Audiences too had started to show signs of franchise fatigue, with a wave of similar sci-fi action struggling to find long-term footing. The franchise was quietly redirected toward television and animation, which aligned with broader industry strategies. Streaming sites were also aiming to drown animated spin-offs and serialized construction of worlds, with fewer resources and more room to be creative. In 2021, Netflix released Pacific Rim: The Black, which might not be a direct continuation of Uprising, but the show kept the lore alive and offered a more intimate, character-focused take on the universe. Meanwhile, comic book spin-offs like Pacific Rim Aftermath filled in narrative gaps between the two films, even though they didn't carry enough cultural weight to reignite excitement around a third installment. No new films were announced, and entries gradually shifted toward other franchises with more traction, like Godzilla x Kong and Dune. For fans, Pacific Rim 3 remains a missed opportunity, one that promised epic crossovers, deeper world building, and a return to the franchise's darker, more grounded tone. But in the high-stakes world of blockbuster filmmaking, ambition alone isn't enough. New Frontiers, Streaming, TV Prequel, and Franchise Future. The Pacific Rim franchise is stepping into live-action once again, but this time it's heading to the small screen. A live-action prequel series is officially in development at Amazon Prime Video, aiming to revisit the franchise's roots and reframe the universe from the ground up. The series, still untitled, is being developed by Legendary Television, with Arrival and Bird Box screenwriter Eric Heiserer serving as showrunner, who is known for his ability to ground high-concept sci-fi in human emotion. Heiserer's involvement suggests the prequel will lean into potentially exploring the psychological and political impacts of the early Kaiju war, alongside the visual spectacle. Set before the events of Guillermo del Toro's 2013 film, the series will reportedly show the origins of the breach, the interdimensional rift at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, through which the Kaiju emerge. It will also deal with how the first Jaegers were produced, and how they were assembled during a time of desperation to fight the Kaiju. Based on early production reports, the show will be set in a time when humans were only understanding the Kaiju phenomenon, and will depict the havoc, scientific discovery, and geopolitical cooperation that gave form to the war that was about to happen. Amazon's investment in the project is not surprising, given the recent streaming trend of reviving dormant or slow-burning franchises through high-concept TV series. Following the success of projects like Fallout and The Boys, the streaming platform seems eager to get into Pacific Rim's rich world building and international fanbase. With Heiserer at the helm, the series could strike a balance between cerebral sci-fi and genre spectacle, which is an approach that modern audiences increasingly expect from prestige streaming content. While the details remain limited, industry's insiders suggest the show is being positioned as a potential flagship for Legendary's continued exploration of their MonsterVerse-adjacent properties. Although originally separated from Godzilla's cinematic continuity, Pacific Rim has always shared thematic DNA with the MonsterVerse. Now, with multiverse concepts trending and cinematic walls more permeable than ever, the prequel series might serve as both a reset and a soft bridge to further crossover potential. In terms of franchise strategy, the move makes sense. After the lukewarm reception of Pacific Rim Uprising and the franchise's stalled third film, Legendary's perspective towards serialized storytelling via streaming offers more room for narrative depth and expanded lore, all without the pressure of box office returns. The success of Pacific Rim: The Black showed that audiences still crave this world, and the live-action prequel now has the opportunity to reignite the spark that made the original film a cult classic. In any case, the Amazon series is an indication of a change of direction and how Pacific Rim is being reworked into a sprawling science fiction universe designed to support long-form narrative work. Final Breach. Conclusion of the story in comics, not film. After years of stalled sequels and franchise uncertainty, Pacific Rim is officially getting its finale, Pacific Rim: Final Breach. A comic trilogy set to release between 2025 and 2027 is being positioned as the true conclusion to the saga that began with Guillermo del Toro's 2013 original. With the next Jaeger vs. Kaiju showdown unfolding on the page instead of in theaters, the franchise is closing its loop in an unexpected but increasingly common format. Set several years after the events of Pacific Rim Uprising, Final Breach reunites key characters from across the franchise. Jake Pentecost returns as a more hardened strategic leader. Herman Gottlieb continues his scientific obsession with the kaiju threat, while Rayleigh Beckett, who was absent from Uprising, finally returns to the fold. This time, they're going on the offensive, launching a mission to breach the Antiverse itself, the origin dimension of the kaiju. It promises answers to mysteries like who truly controls the kaiju, what lies beyond the breach, and can humanity survive a full-scale invasion of the enemy's world. What's unique about Final Breach is how it's being funded. The project was launched via Kickstarter as Legendary Comics turned directly to the fanbase for support. The campaign was fully funded within days, reflecting the franchise's cult loyalty even after the reception of its second film. This grassroots approach has allowed creators greater freedom to tell the story they first envisioned, free of box office worries or studio demands. Eric Heiserer, who was originally involved with early development on Pacific Rim 3, is working on determining the narrative direction, with veteran comic writers well versed in the lore of the franchise writing the script. Legendary Comics has also confirmed that it will maintain canon status, with direct ties to both films and the Pacific Rim Black animated series. This continuity adds weight to the comic's claim as the real conclusion to the cinematic storyline, especially considering that there are currently no plans for Pacific Rim 3 to be revived on screen. The use of comics as franchise endpoints isn't new. Franchises like Firefly, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Star Wars Dark Empire have all extended or concluded major story arcs through the medium. But Final Breach stands out because it's being treated as the actual ending. It raises important questions. Can comics offer satisfying closure to stories that began in theaters? For longtime fans, Final Breach offers the emotional resolution that the films never got to deliver. It's a way to end the saga on its own terms, creatively intact, even if not widely mainstream. In the end, Pacific Rim may not be returning to cinemas anytime soon, but for those still invested in drifting with Jaegers and silencing the kaiju threat once and for all, Final Breach is where the story truly ends. Marvelous verdict. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into what happened to the Pacific Rim movie franchise. From Guillermo del Toro's visionary original to the shaky sequel and the stalled plans for a third film, this saga has had its share of plot twists. The transition to animation and comics, and now a streaming prequel, shows how studios are adjusting to a time where blockbuster fatigue and shifting audience preferences make a franchise less likely to be a sure bet. Pacific Rim is developing and trying to find more ways to make its fans involved and maintain the universe. What do you think? Is there still hope for a big screen return? Or has the future of Pacific Rim been written elsewhere? Drop your thoughts and favorite moments in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious and stay marvelous.